The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to Virtually Here's LinkedIn.com webinar. My name is Carla Smith, and I will be your host today. All participants are in listen-only mode, so please send your questions through the chat window, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. Today we will go step by step through the process of setting up a LinkedIn profile by reviewing each section one by one. This webinar is being recorded, so please visit Virtually Here's YouTube page if you would like to view it again in the future. So I just want to start by talking about social media. Social media can be looked at by separating out these two words. So think about them individually. Social, you can use social media to find friends and grow your network. Media, you can use social media to share information. So if you're wondering how to connect with prospective customers, industry experts, development resources, or even venture capitalists, LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, but there's an etiquette to using it. So let's jump right in. So these are just a couple of facts for you to gain an appreciation for the power of LinkedIn. 92% of companies use it, 93% of recruiters use social media, and every second, 2 new people join LinkedIn. So my first recommendation is to start yesterday. You want to start building your LinkedIn profile as soon as you realize that you want to connect, you're looking for a job, you are trying to join groups and get answers to questions. So you want to have a great profile. Most importantly, you want to use a high quality photo. And your avatar should show that you are likable and trustworthy. Also, you can choose a background. My background on the first slide was a bit phased out. It wasn't coming out as clear as my original. If you go to my profile, it's pencils sticking up. So I think that makes me look like a creator, and I love to write. So choose a background that also tells a story, because with both your photo and your background, including your title, people will infer things about you based on that very top section. So, next, you want to look at the summary section. So, your summary should be human-based and written in a very conversational style. You want to give people a sense of your personality. You also want to have links within your profile, as these will add meaningful content. So Liz Ryan is someone who I follow. She heads up the human workplace, and she has very funny blog posts. So you might want to read a couple of hers to get a sense of what a human voice is, and you should use it in the summary section of your profile as well as your entire resume. And here in the summary section, you can also put links. For instance, I have a link to a blog at a past company where I was solely responsible for all the blog posts. And I also have a link to the webinar that I ran last week about having goals and reaching them. So the experience section is basically your online resume. And the main point here is to have some visual interest. So you're going to want to go out and find the company listed and choose its logo and link it back to your profile. And then, be brief, because you've only got about 15 seconds. So recommendations, I think, are very important, but you have to ask for them. People are not going to offer to write you a recommendation. And one thing that I always do, I go to someone's profile and I look at who's written them recommendations, and then I click through on a couple of those people, and if they've written recommendations for each other, I negate those recommendations completely. So think about people besides coworkers to get your recommendations from. Your skills are also called endorsements, and I don't give these a lot of weight at all. I don't show all of the endorsements that people have given me. You can manage everything that's viewed on your profile, which is great. So if you speak another language, definitely put it here. You never know what skill is going to, get you in the door, make a connection with someone else. The education section, that's pretty self-explanatory, and my only comment would be don't put the years if you don't want the employer or person you're connecting with to calculate your age. Sometimes being young is a disadvantage, and then being older can also be a disadvantage if you're job searching, depending what industry. In the additional information section, that's where you're going to want to put your interests, personal information, and advice for contacting. So, for instance, I have my interests are downhill skiing at Jay Peak and scuba diving. And then it's up to you if you want to put personal information. I have my personal email address because if you use your business email address, I'm sure you all know, your employer can look at those and you'll be found out searching, spending time on LinkedIn when you should be doing work. And then I don't have my cell phone number there, but if you're in sales, you definitely should. Now, the connection section is, consider this your personal database. And I'm sure you've worked with a database in your life and it was just full of junk. And it was slow and you couldn't find what you were looking for. So you definitely want to keep your connections fresh and you want to keep them current. And I go through and remove connections, and I'm networking all the time, and I take people's cards and I come home and I look up their profile and they usually send me a request to connect, and you can ignore the request if you don't choose, you don't want to connect with that person. Or if you have connected with someone in the past and then you realize it's not a fruitful relationship, you can remove that connection. The groups section, I think, is very helpful. Joining groups will expose you to more people, and it'll push your SEO ratings on LinkedIn high. So you can start discussions within your groups and eventually become considered a thought leader. For example, I'm a member of many groups. I monitor their content, and I'll stay in a group for maybe a couple weeks, a month. But if I find that the content is not meaningful to me, I leave the group. And another thing about groups is you can choose to make the groups that you're following visible on your profile. And you can do that also with influencers, news, and companies. We're coming up to that. So the following section is anyone out there that you find inspirational. I didn't put her name down here, but I do follow Liz Ryan, the Human Workplace. You can also take a look at your peers, look at their entire profile, who they're following, whether it be influencers or companies, and what news they're reading, and check it out. And then if it doesn't help you or add to your value, you can always just remove it. So I group these last three sections together, news, companies, and education, because they're pretty basic. Whatever is in the news that's interesting to you, you can follow it. I tend not to follow companies I've worked for, but I definitely follow companies that I'm interested in working with or for in the future. And education, those excuse me, those could be schools that you have attended, or they could be schools that you just want to follow because you're interested in knowing what their developments are. So that is my presentation. I wanted to just quickly explain virtually here for those of you who are not familiar with the organization. We run these webinars, free series of webinars every other Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And so please sign up for any that are of interest to you. And we can help at the virtual assistant level, but we also have recently hired quite a few experts to take on IT, website, graphic design, and I specifically do general marketing. We have someone also who is an SEO expert. So if you're interested, please go to our website and check it out. I am going to freeze my screen so that I can look at the questions, if you just bear with me. I have not received any questions through the question pane, so please send those in now, and I'd be happy to answer them. Let me just jump to the final slides. You have our URL to our website. And if I don't get any questions, I'm going to take you to my LinkedIn page and show you how my profile looks, and that might be helpful. All right, I'm just going to look one more time in the questions pane. I must have done such a good job that there are no questions. So, excuse me, let me just do something real quick, and I will be right back with you all. Okay, here we are. So this is my actual LinkedIn profile. So you'll see that I have my name, my maiden name in parentheses. I have my title. It automatically populates the current, previous, and education sections. I've got a nice looking photo there. And then we go into the background. So this is, I wrote that summary, and if you notice, it's a paragraph, it's not bullets, it's very conversational. And then I have the blog from the company XGrid that I worked for, and I have a link to the webinar that I did 2 weeks ago about SMART goal setting. So experience, like I said, you want to go out and grab the logo from the company where you work. I'm going to just quickly go down through all of these. So this is where I've worked, and the logos of the companies. And then that's additional test scores. I didn't talk about this, but if you volunteer or support organizations, you should add them there. So these are the endorsements that I don't think are helpful at all. So let's skip over that. And then languages, I do speak Spanish, where I went to school, additional interests, so there's JPEAK and scuba diving, advice for contacting me, my personal email, and then these are my recommendations. I have received 6 and given 3. And you can click on the more to expand. And then my connections. I have 266 connections, and you'll see next to that it says 2, which means 2 people have requested to connect with me. And I will go and look at their profiles and decide whether or not to connect with them. And then just wrapping up, those are some of my groups. You see there are 14 more. This is who I'm following as my influencers. There's the news that I read, companies I'm following, 11 and more are not displayed, and then the schools that I'm following. So that concludes the webinar on LinkedIn.com. I'm an all-star. If anyone has any questions following the webinar today, please reach out to me, kgs@virtuallyhere.net, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. So this concludes the webinar. I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for attending.